Tastemakers was funded in part by
In the hands of those who take pride in what they do, something unique can be created. Edward Jones is proud to support the craftspeople who define the maker movement.
In this episode of Tastemakers, you are going to meet Yoshi Sako, a sake brewer in Oakland, California, who is producing small batch sake using only rice from this field. I'm Kat Neville, and for the past 2 decades, I've been telling the story of local food. In that time, American food culture has exploded in tiny towns and big cities from coast to coast. In Tastemakers, I explore the maker movement and take you along for the journey to meet the makers who define the flavor of American cuisine. Tucked inside a collective of makers here in Oakland, California, Yoshi Sako is hand brewing sake that's meant to be food friendly. And judging by the incredible array of places that carry den sake on their menus, he is hitting the mark.
I was working in the restaurant industry for a long time as a sake buyer or sake director, sake sommelier, and I started to teach sake class. And I was thinking how I can gain my knowledge more. I study about sake. I visited a couple sake breweries in Japan and did an apprenticeship for 1 month. And I came back and I was like, okay, let's do it here. That's how I started, like a test brewing.
He did a couple test brewings at his friend's backyard and realized, hey, this is actually pretty good. So that's when it kind of really was born, this idea of, okay, I want my own brewery.
Once I started it, little by little, I kind of realized, wow, this is hard. But because I already started it, I have to keep going. So that's why I'm here now. For the sake making process, basically we make steamed rice. After that, steamed rice is carried into the cold room to cool down to the ideal temperature, and that steamed rice is carried into the koji room, which is a little bit more heated room. It takes about 50 to 55 hours to cultivate the koji mold. So koji is basically, it's a fungus. That fungus break down the starch and convert it into the sugar. What kind of koji you make, that's directly reflect to the flavor of the sake. So it's kind of one of the most important process of sake making. We steam rice for 2 different purposes. One is for koji making and one is for putting directly into the fermentation tank. We add water, and together water and the koji rice and the steamed rice takes about 25 days to finish the fermentation. And we press the mash and it becomes sake. That press machine is super old school and it requires manual labors. And it takes actually 3 days to press everything. So by pressing using that way, sake becomes a little more rounder, softer, and tastes good too.
I've never seen anything like this. I've been in breweries and distilleries and wineries. This is completely unique. These tanks are full of water.
Full of water, yeah.
And how heavy are they?
So one drum is about like 500 pounds. So the both together about 1,000 pounds.
So 1,000 pounds are on this side, and you're going to leave this hanging for about a day or so,
Yeah.
correct?
So I started from yesterday. I hang only one drum yesterday. Yesterday was the first day of pressing. And today is the second day. I hung 2 drums after restocking all the sake mash. Then leave it till tomorrow. Then I remove all the sake leaves, leftover rice solids, then start another pressing.
And so you just are using massive amounts of pressure
Yeah.
to get every single drop of liquid and flavor out of those rice grains.
Yeah.
And so it's coming out of the bottom, and then is it going into that other tank back there?
Yeah, exactly.
Then what happens?
So 2 tanks worth juice is gonna go into this big tank, one tank, and the other 2 tanks juice is gonna go into the other 1,000 liter tank. After that, I leave it for about 5 days. After 5 days, all those white kind of sediment will stay at the bottom. So I take out on the clear pot.
Okay.
So that becomes a product. We're gonna do a bottling. Then some products will be pasteurized, and some products will be sold as unpasteurized. It's called nama.
Now my favorite part, we're going to taste the sake, and we're going to
Sure.
taste the pasteurized and the unpasteurized side by side.
We'll start with unpasteurized, which is nama.
The aroma of sake is rich. There's a lot to it. And you know, the ingredients are so simple. Oakland tap water, sushi rice, koji,
And the yeast.
and the yeast. It's delicious.
Great.
There is so much depth of flavor. And it has a round mouthfeel, it coats your tongue, but it really does have kind of like that sense of banana and mango.
Yeah.
And it's just
Tropical a little bit. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's delicious. So this is much more crisp. It doesn't have that roundness that the other one did. It's more
Little sharp.
austere,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. I would say nama is more expressive, more bold, more vibrant.
Yoshi sources his rice from only one farm, and that is here at Rue Forsman Ranch near Sacramento. Not only does Michael Bosworth grow about 10 varieties of rice, he also uses the farm as a haven for migratory birds.
Growing up on a farm, you're always wanting to see how you can use what you're growing. What other applications are there? I mean, obviously we can make great sushi, we can make great Thai food, but to make a beverage, we'd never done anything like that before. And so, I'm always excited to collaborate with people that are passionate about food, and Yoshi is definitely one of those people. And I think he has a great approach to making his sake, and it's just an exciting collaboration for us.
What variety of rice do you grow for Yoshi? Because you have like 10 different varieties under cultivation.
Yeah, that's right. So we grow a variety called Kalikari for Yoshi. It's a variety that was developed by the Rice Experiment Station, and it's a real great Japanese type short grain variety that can be used for sushi and obviously now sake. Holds up well, it's got great flavor, great texture in the mouth, and nice aroma. It's just really delicious.
So I was really struck by the partnership that you have with the Nature Conservancy to essentially act as a way station for migratory birds. How did all of that come about?
They developed a pilot program, it was 5 or 6 years ago, and we participated in it. It's something that we thought had some real potential. What they did is they looked at various timings of flooding a field and depth and kind of cultural practices, what you did after you harvested it with the straw and everything, and really looked at that and looked at the bird response, and they tracked that, and they were out here every day counting birds. And they came up with a great program that said, Well, this is the way to do it, right? This is the timing that's the most important. This is the water depth that's the best for the birds. And this is the management from the farming side that's the best. And then they scaled that program up, and we've been huge supporters of it ever since.
So what kind of birds do you see here?
All kind. I mean, there's obviously, you're going to have the traditional birds, ducks and geese and things like that. But when we started having lower water level for the migratory birds, you get dowitchers, you get sandpiper, you get avocets, stilts. So many different, shorebird species than, I guess you would typically see.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably familiar with wine. And so, as an alcohol beverage to pair with food, sake is kind of similar to wine. Sake also, can be drunk with food, same as wine. And the biggest difference between wine and the sake is wine's backbone is acidity, the acid from the fruits. And the sake's backbone is more like amino acid that creates more umami flavor, more savoriness. That's the biggest difference. And especially here, people are used to eating food with beverage with high acidity, like wine. So I decided to raise acidity for my sake so that people here, they don't really have to switch their brain to pair the drinks with food. It's easier for them, I think. And also the food I eat here is a little bit different from food Japanese people eat in Japan. Here it's a little bit more protein rich, a little bit more fattier, so need the acidity to cut through it too. So it's two reasons I kind of like decided to more raise acidity for my sake.
So I'm standing here in the heart of San Francisco with Bo Timken, who is the founder of True Sake. And how many years have you been doing this? You said 17?
This is 17th year. So we were the first people to open a dedicated sake store outside of Japan.
So how did you get to know Yoshi?
Yoshi's done sake programs for different restaurants, and we just know each other through that. And I knew Yoshi was very passionate. And his wife, they're a team, and that team is making fantastic sake right now that I'm very proud of selling, and I'm very proud of, when people come in and saying, let us taste something that's made in America. And Yoshi's done just such a great job. It makes me very happy for him.
Yoshi, here in the heart, essentially, of wine country, is making a sake specifically with a higher level of acidity to pair with food, and that's kind of what he's hoping for. Do you see other brewers kind of taking that approach?
Sure, I mean, that's the way it is in Japan. So you're brewing for your village, you're brewing for what you eat, what you're made of. Yoshi, his village is Oakland, California, but it's also super food-centric, food-savvy people. So he's making sakes that go well with burgers, go well with pasta, go well with all these alien foods to the sake world, but they fit. He makes sake that has body, has acidity, but it's for everything. I mean, it's snack food.
Yeah.
Yoshi sake with potato chips, forget about it. I'm not joking. It's great.
So Soba Ichi, which is right here on the same property as us, they were one of our first customers. They serve the sake, and it's great because people drink it here, they like it, and they're able to say it's made right over there. So people always think that's really interesting and cool.
Our specialty is soba. Soba is Japanese buckwheat noodles, which is very traditional or popular in Japan. It's a very collaboration with Den Sake and our food.
Besides serving the sake as a drink, the chef Koichi also uses the sake kasu, which are the pressed lees, and he uses it to make actually a cheese appetizer. He mixes it with cream cheese, and you can really taste kind of the sweetness from the sake. It's kind of neat that the byproduct from making the sake doesn't go to waste. Chefs are able to use it in dishes they prepare.
Our next stop is here in Healdsburg, California at Single Thread Farms, where a Japanese ethos is woven throughout the entire incredible experience. So explain the menu here. I mean, obviously it's rotating with the seasons, but just generally when people come in, what kind of experience are they going to have?
So it's 11 courses. Ideally in good weather, you start with a glass of champagne on a rooftop, kind of relaxing and watching the sunset. And then you come down and we have what we internally refer to as the Hasun course, which is an array of small bites, fresh fish, fresh produce from the farm, and then 10 courses from there. Really all kind of rooted very closely thematically with their place historically in kaiseki cuisine, but of course our rendition on it.
And so how does sake kind of weave its way into the wine program?
It's usually actually later on in the menu with kind of more aromatic or more savory dishes. Oftentimes pairing with sake can be slightly challenging. They don't have that same sort of high acidity, mouth-watering, crisp quality to them that a lot of white wines can give you very naturally. Mm-hmm. And so den sake, that really gets a little more total acid to it. It's really amazing how well I can slot it into a lot of our different courses.
You're pairing the den sake with a dish here on the menu. Kind of tell me about the dish.
So the dish is traditionally a whitefish dish. Oftentimes we're using coastal black cod from here off the California coast. It's been smoked over cherry blossom wood in one of those earthenware vessels. This one called an ibushigin, or smoker. We take the lid off table side and kind of put it in the center, and it wafts all this wonderful cherry blossom wood smoke kind of all throughout the table. And for tables that haven't quite gotten that far in the menu, it's also kind of awesome because they're like, oh my gosh, what is that smell?
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to that course. Kind of builds anticipation.
Well, and that's what I love, is that it feels like here there are kind of like these little, extremely thoughtful surprises around every corner. The idea that you can choose this handmade cup and it's completely unique. The fact that you're serving the sake out of vessels truly made in Japan, and it's this very kind of hushed and quiet environment that allows people to fully, I think, experience the flavors and the sights and the sounds.
Absolutely. A lot of people say it's almost like there's a dance going on when you dine here. Things kind of just come and go and waft by. We really try to appeal to all the senses and such.
Here at Quince in San Francisco, wine is the major star of the beverage program, but because of its high acidity, den sake has made the list. Let's check in with their sommelier now. This is a restaurant that is very, very wine focused, and Yoshi kind of like got the door open to be included in your tasting menu, right?
So we have one tasting menu for the evening, and then we offer a wine and sometimes other beverage pairings. So we kind of came to a dish that needed something a little different. So this dish came out, it was called Wild Nettles. Had potato, oyster, basically a kind of a different version of a chowder. So we were tasting all of these wines with it, and nothing was really working out for us.
And so when you tasted that den sake, what were the flavors in that sake in particular that worked with this particular dish?
Oddly enough, there was this banana and tropical note in this sake that I just kind of fell in love with. And for me, it was a very textural pairing. That's what we were missing with wine or other beverages. It kind of just enveloped the oyster. It had enough acidity to cut through the creamy aspect of the dish. And that banana note kind of worked with the wild nettle, which is notoriously a difficult ingredient to pair with.
Like artichokes or something like that?
It's something like that, artichoke, eggplant, those kind of ingredients. The den sake, it came in here, it was perfect, it was received well. That's what makes that sake so unique, is that it can kind of cut through those richer elements which you would normally never be able to do with the sake.
Here at Rentaro, which is actually one of Yoshi and Lonnie's favorite restaurants, their sake is on the list, but what's more exciting is that the lees from their sake making process actually makes an appearance in the kitchen. So I'm standing here in Rentaro. Yoshi and Lonnie, they said this was kind of like their favorite place. And like they used to, when they lived closer to the restaurant,
Yeah,
they
you
would
used
be
to come
here
all the time.
every
Yeah,
week.
Yeah, they were just absolutely regular customers, and they would come late, and they would drink a lot, and they would sit at the yakitori grill. And when he started experimenting with making his own sake, he would bring us his lees, like the sake pressings. They were always really flavorful, really aromatic, and delicious. So I've been using them for a long time, actually.
So what do you do with the lees?
The thing that I do mostly is preserve fish. Use it to cure black cod, sometimes to cure the local king salmon. We also occasionally make a soup out of it. It's kind of like a miso soup, and rather than adding miso, you add the sake lees. And I've got a sake lees pickled wasabi.
Next up, we're stopping by Umami Mart to chat with Yoko about how best to serve sake. So there are an array of glasses to be able to enjoy your sake. Kind of explain to me why these are designed the way that they're designed in order to enhance the flavor and aroma of the sake.
Those are meant for hot sake. One of the reasons why is because they're easier to heat in a bath of water, or the tokuri is. And then the ceramic is easier to hold if it's warm.
And then how about these? These are so fun.
So those are wonderful because you have the stem. So if you're having a chilled sake and you really don't want the heat from your fingers to transfer to the sake, this is a nice option, just like a wine glass too, for the stem.
So there are also wooden boxes that are used for drinking sake?
Yes, yeah, they're called masu. I have one right here. Masus are wooden boxes made from cedar. Commonly, you're gonna see a flute like this in the masu, and then they'll pour the sake into the flute, and then they'll let it overflow. And this is a expression of plentifulness, of being grateful to whoever it is you're pouring for, to like an overflowing of of bounty and kind of gratitude.
And again, it's like sake is a wonderful beverage. You can put it in just a straight up wine glass, but being able to use all these different ways to consume it, it adds just one more level of just kind of fun to it, frankly.
Yeah.
Yoko, actually, she does have this bar, and the den sake is your biggest seller.
It is, yeah. It's delicious. People really seem to relate to the flavor profile. Once you pour it for people, they really remember it. There's kind of this distinct den aroma that he's cultivated in the past 7 batches at this point.
Yoshi, he's learned complexity. Sometimes some namas are too big. Yoshi's nama's a great food partner. It has strength, it's solid. He only has limited ingredients, right? He's got Oakland water, man. And he's got rice from up in Sacramento. And he's working within these confines. And he's making sake that tastes like Japanese sake.
Having been his friend before he started making sake, when he still was in the restaurant industry, what did you think as he was making this transition to producing a local product? I mean, that's a huge leap to take.
It seemed hard, because I know that like a lot of really traditional Japanese products, there's so much technique and so much history and culture and skill that's acquired over generations and generations and generations. But the fact that he was such a sake devotee to begin with, and he's got such an enthusiasm.
It's worked.
It's worked extremely well, yeah.
I can't believe he's only been open for not even 2 years.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive because of him and like his single-mindedness, which I think is why it's a good sake.
It's been about a year since he released batch 1, and it's been amazing. It's just taken off more than we ever thought. The James Beard nomination was humbling. The first time ever a sake producer was nominated.
Sake making, in the beginning, I just wanted to see how it's going, how they do it. Then, little by little, I kind of started to having more motivation in the going deeper to the sake making process. Once I started the test brewing, I realized, wow, this cannot be just a side job. I have to fully put myself into it. I started getting to know about the ingredients, how I can treat them to create my ideal style of sake. I kind of started to having more, confidence about, what I can make. But it's never ending. I'm still learning every day. Every time I make sake, I learn something new.
For more information on Den Sake Brewery, as well as all the other incredible makers we featured in this series, just head to wearetastemakers.com. Thanks for joining me here in California, and I'll see you next time. Connect with us online at wearetastemakers.com or through social media on these handles.
Tastemakers was funded in part by
In the hands of those who take pride in what they do, something unique can be created. Edward Jones is proud to support the craftspeople who define the maker movement.